Get ready for a magical adventure with Jorinda and Joringel, when a wicked witch turns Jorinda into a beautiful bird. Brave Joringel must find a way to save her from a spooky castle. Can he break the spell and bring her home?
Deep within a large, thick forest stood an ancient, imposing castle. In its shadowy walls, an old woman lived all alone, a wicked witch known for her dark powers. During the day, she often transformed herself into a sleek black cat or a hooting screech owl, but as evening fell, she always returned to her human form. She had a strange ability to lure forest creatures and birds, whom she would then cook for her meals. Her most chilling power was to freeze anyone who came within 100 paces of her castle. Innocent maidens who strayed too close were magically changed into beautiful birds and locked away in wicker cages in a secret room. She had amassed an astonishing collection, almost 7,000 fluttering captives. In a village not far from the enchanted forest lived a maiden named Jorinda, whose beauty shone brighter than any other girl's. She and a handsome young man called Joringel were deeply in love, having promised to marry each other very soon. Their greatest joy was simply being together, sharing quiet moments and dreams. One beautiful afternoon, seeking a peaceful place to talk, they ventured into the edge of the sprawling forest. "Be careful, my dear Jorinda," Joringel wisely cautioned, his voice gentle but firm. "We must not go too close to the old castle, for tales say strange things happen there." That evening, as the sun began to paint the sky with warm colors, a peculiar change swept through the forest air. The bright sunlight streamed between the ancient tree trunks, piercing the dark green canopy, but a sense of unease grew. Even the gentle cooing of the turtle doves from the leafy birch tree branches sounded mournful and sad. Jorinda found herself weeping softly, sitting on a sunlit patch of grass, feeling a deep sadness. Joringel, too, felt his heart heavy, a sorrow as profound as if a great loss was near. Together they looked around, utterly lost, unable to remember the way back home. The sun hung just above the mountain peaks, half set, casting long, eerie shadows. Suddenly, peering through a thick tangle of bushes, Joringel saw them, the ancient, crumbling walls of the witch's castle looming terribly close. A wave of icy horror and dread washed over him, freezing him in his tracks. At that very moment, Jorinda began to sing a melancholic verse, her sweet voice echoing softly. "My little bird, with the necklace red, sings sorrow, sorrow, sorrow. He sings that the dove must soon be dead. Sings sorrow sore, jug, 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 jug." Joringel frantically searched for her, eyes wide with fear. To his utter despair, Jorinda shimmered and changed, transforming into a beautiful nightingale, singing only a soft, sorrowful jug, jug, jug. Then, a large screech owl with glowing, fiery red eyes circled 3 times above the transformed nightingale, crying out a chilling "to-hoo, to-hoo, to-hoo," before vanishing into the shadows. Joringel stood utterly still, as if turned to stone, unable to move a muscle, speak a word, or even shed a single tear. His heart pounded with fear as the sun finally dipped below the horizon, plunging the forest into deep twilight. The ominous owl flew into a thicket of thorny bushes, and moments later, a hunched, old woman emerged. She was yellow and lean, with unnervingly large red eyes and a long, hooked nose that nearly touched her chin. Muttering to herself, this wicked witch gently scooped up the little nightingale Jorinda in her bony hand and carried her away towards the dark castle. Joringel remained rooted to the spot, helpless, watching his beloved disappear into the deepening gloom. At last, the wicked old woman returned to the spot where Joringel stood paralyzed, an eerie smile on her face. In a hollow, raspy voice, she spoke a strange command. "Greet thee, Zachiel. If the moon shines on the cage, Zachiel, let him loose at once. With these words, the powerful enchantment that held Joringel captive suddenly lifted, and he could move again. He instantly fell to his knees, stretching out his hands towards the witch, begging her to return his precious Jorinda. But the cruel old woman just shook her head, declaring that he would never have her back, and then she vanished swiftly into the forest. Joringel called out for Jorinda, weeping and lamenting. "Ah, what is to become of me?" His cries echoing through the silent woods, but it was all in vain. Heartbroken and alone, Joringel left the enchanted forest behind, wandering until he reached a distant, unfamiliar village. There, he found work as a shepherd, tending to flocks of fluffy white sheep for a long, quiet period. Even so, his thoughts often returned to Jorinda, and he would frequently walk around the edges of the ancient castle, though always keeping a safe, cautious distance, never daring to get too close. One night, a vivid and hopeful dream visited him as he slept. He dreamt of discovering a magnificent, blood-red flower, at the very center of which shimmered a luminous, beautiful pearl. In his dream, he picked this magical flower and went straight to the castle, finding that anything he touched with it was instantly freed from enchantment, and in this way, he triumphantly recovered his beloved Jorinda. The next morning, Joringel awoke with a vivid memory of his dream still fresh in his mind, feeling a surge of renewed hope. He knew he had to find that magical flower, no matter how impossible it seemed. With determination in his heart, he set out, searching tirelessly over sunny hills and through deep valleys, his eyes scanning every patch of greenery. Day after day he continued his quest, his feet growing weary but his spirit unwilling to falter. For 9 long days he searched, never losing hope. Then, on the morning of the 9th day, as the first rays of sun touched the land, he finally spotted it. There, in a hidden glade, was the magnificent blood-red flower, glowing softly, and right in its center, glistening with morning dew, was a single, large drop, as radiant and perfect as the finest pearl he had imagined in his dream. With the precious flower carefully held in his hand, Joringel embarked on his journey back to the castle, traveling tirelessly both day and night. His heart was filled with a mix of anticipation and courage, knowing he was finally prepared to face the witch. As he approached, reaching the invisible boundary 100 paces from the castle walls, a remarkable thing happened. This time, he was not held fast by any magic. The invisible enchantment had no power over him. He walked freely, his steps purposeful and strong, directly towards the large, ancient wooden door of the forbidding castle. Joringel felt an overwhelming surge of joy and hope. He triumphantly touched the weathered door with the magical flower, and with a soft creak, it instantly sprang open, inviting him inside. Full of determination, Joringel stepped inside, walking through the spacious, echoing courtyard of the castle. Once inside, he paused, listening intently for any sound that might guide him. A soft, continuous chorus of bird chirps and tweets, a sound he had longed to hear, caught his ear. Following the sweet melodies, he made his way deeper into the castle, his heart quickening with each step. At last, he discovered the source, a grand room filled with shafts of sunlight, where a truly unbelievable sight awaited him. There, surrounded by countless wickerwork cages, stood the wicked old woman, feeding the very birds she had enchanted. It was the witch, tending to her 7,000 feathered captives, her hunched figure moving among the multitude of cages. The moment the wicked old woman saw Joringel enter her bird-filled chamber, her face twisted in a furious snarl. She shrieked with anger, her voice harsh and raspy, and began to spit venomous words and threats at him, her large red eyes blazing. But to her utter surprise and fury, she found she could not come any closer than 2 paces to him. The magical flower he held created an invisible barrier. Joringel, his gaze steadfast, paid no attention to her angry curses or attempts to intimidate him. Instead, he calmly walked past her, his eyes focused on the countless cages that lined the room. He needed to find his beloved Jorinda among the hundreds of beautiful nightingales. a daunting task, just as Joringel began to feel overwhelmed by the sheer number of birds. Trying to distinguish his Jorinda from the rest, he noticed something. The cunning old woman, with a sly look on her face, quietly picked up one specific wicker cage. She then began to sneak towards the door, holding the cage protectively, clearly planning to hide that particular bird. Joringel's heart leaped, a sudden instinct telling him that this must be Jorinda's cage. With a burst of speed and renewed hope, he swiftly sprang towards her, his movements quick and decisive. He reached out the magical, blood-red flower and gently, but firmly, touched the wicker cage, then quickly touched the old woman herself. In that instant, the dark spell began to unravel, and a remarkable transformation unfolded before his eyes. As the magical flower touched the wicked witch, her dark powers instantly vanished, leaving her powerless forevermore. No longer could she cast her cruel enchantments on anyone, her reign of terror finally at an end. And then, a truly wondrous sight unfolded right before Joringel's overjoyed eyes. With a soft shimmer, the tiny nightingale in the cage transformed back into his beloved Jorinda. She stood there, as beautiful and radiant as he remembered, with her long, flowing golden blonde hair and bright green eyes, dressed in her pastel yellow gown. Tears of relief and happiness streamed down Joringel's face as Jorinda, her eyes sparkling with love, instantly clasped her arms around his neck, holding him tight. They were finally reunited, their long separation over, and so Jorinda and Joringel lived happily ever after, their love stronger than any enchantment. Their adventure teaches us a valuable lesson about the power of unwavering love and true courage. Even when faced with the darkest magic and seemingly impossible challenges, hope can light the way. Joringel's determination to find the magical flower and save Jorinda shows us that we should never give up on those we care about. Remember, kindness and bravery can break even the strongest spells, always leading us to a joyful and happy ending. So always be courageous, believe in hope, and never lose faith in love's amazing strength.
Ever dreamed of being the hero? Now you get to be the star. Your adventure starts at TalesMio. Visit talesmio.com now.